Jake Morrison stood at his post near the main entrance of the Grand Assembly Hall, watching the crowd of alien delegates file in for the most important meeting of the year. His black security uniform felt heavier than usual today, and the weight of his sidearm reminded him that he was one of only 12 humans trusted with security duties on New Harmony Station. The massive space station floated in neutral space, serving as the home of the Galactic Council, where representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss trade, territorial disputes, and the endless complications of interstellar politics. Jake had been working security here for 3 years, and he still felt amazed when he saw the incredible diversity of life forms that called this place home. Today was special because Queen Zalara of the Crystalline Empire was giving the opening address. The queen was unlike any being Jake had ever seen, standing nearly 8 feet tall and composed entirely of living crystal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. Her people were ancient, peaceful, and respected throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and their incredible ability to grow cities from pure crystal formations. Jake watched as the queen entered the hall, her crystalline form catching the light from the chamber's specially designed illumination system. She moved with grace and dignity, her surface reflecting rainbows of color that danced across the walls. The assembled delegates rose to their feet in respect, creating a symphony of sounds as 47 different species showed their reverence. In their own ways, the Talon Confederation representatives clicked their razor-sharp claws together. The insectoid hive-mind delegates created a harmonic buzzing sound, and the gaseous nebula collective shimmered with patterns of light. Even the usually stoic rock-based Granite Brotherhood shifted their massive forms in what passed for a bow among their kind. Jake felt proud to be part of this moment, even if he was just a security guard standing at the back of the room. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 15 years, making them one of the newest species to join this ancient organization. Many of the older species still looked down on humans as primitive newcomers, but Jake believed that his people had earned their place through hard work and determination. Queen Zalara approached the central podium, her movements creating tiny musical notes as her crystalline form resonated with the station's hull. The hall fell silent as she prepared to speak, her voice carrying the wisdom of millennia. When she finally began, "Honored delegates," she said, her voice like the sound of wind chimes in a gentle breeze, "we gather today to address the growing tensions in the Outer Rim territories and the recent discovery of rare mineral deposits that several species claim as their own." Jake noticed something strange as she spoke. There was a faint shimmer in the air near the podium, almost like heat waves rising from hot pavement on a summer day. He blinked and looked again, but the shimmer seemed to have disappeared. Jake had learned to trust his instincts during his years in security, and something about that shimmer bothered him. The Queen continued her address, discussing the need for peaceful resolution and the importance of maintaining the treaties that had kept the galaxy stable for over 1,000 years. Her words were wise and measured, and Jake could see the assembled delegates listening with respect and attention. Then, without warning, Queen Zalara stumbled. The massive crystalline being swayed on her feet, and Jake saw cracks beginning to form along her surface. The inner light that had always glowed within her crystal form began to dim, flickering like a candle in the wind. Gasps and cries of alarm erupted from the assembled delegates as the Queen's condition rapidly deteriorated. "Medical emergency?" In the Grand Assembly Hall, Jake spoke quickly into his cum device, his training taking over even as his mind raced to understand what was happening. "Queen Zalara is in distress." "Repeat, medical emergency." The Queen's crystalline form continued to crack, and the beautiful rainbow patterns that had danced across her surface turned dull and gray. She collapsed to her knees behind the podium, her massive form creating a sound like breaking glass as she hit the floor. Chaos erupted in the hall. The Talon Confederation delegates began shrieking their battle cries, their warrior instincts triggered by the sight of danger. The hive mind representatives swarmed together, their individual forms merging into defensive clusters. The gaseous nebula collective began to glow with alarming colors that Jake had never seen before. Commander Vera Hayes burst through the main entrance, her security team following close behind. Jake had worked with Vera for 2 years and respected her calm leadership, but even she looked shaken by the sight of the failing queen. "Lock down the hall," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Nobody leaves until we know what happened." Jake moved quickly to secure the entrances while other security personnel began trying to calm the panicking delegates. The Queen's personal physician, Dr. Kethver, scuttled across the floor on his 6 insectoid legs, his medical equipment already extended from his specialized biological pouches. Dr. Kethver was a member of the Chitinous Collective, a species known for their incredible medical knowledge and their ability to diagnose problems through chemical analysis. Jake watched as the alien doctor's antennae twitched over the Queen's failing form, his compound eyes reflecting the dim light from her crystalline surface. "Poison," Dr. Kethver announced, his voice creating clicking sounds through his mandibles. "She has been poisoned with a neurotoxin that specifically targets crystalline life forms. This is a rare compound, very difficult to create." The word poison sent another wave of panic through the assembled delegates. Jake noticed that several species began moving away from others, suspicion already beginning to divide the room. The Queen's breathing became labored, and her crystal form continued to crack and darken. "Can you save her?" Ambassador Lisa Carter asked, pushing through the crowd. Lisa was the human representative to the Galactic Council, and Jake had always admired her diplomatic skills and her ability to remain calm under pressure. "I do not know," Dr. Kethver replied honestly. "This toxin is very advanced, designed specifically to attack her species' unique biology. I need to get her to my medical bay immediately." As the medical team prepared to transport the Queen, Jake found himself studying the crowd of delegates. His human intuition told him that this was no accident. The timing was too perfect, happening right during the Queen's most important speech of the year. Someone had planned this, and they had planned it well. Jake's cum device crackled to life as reports came in from the station's analysis team. The news was not good. Traces of the poison had been found throughout the hall's atmospheric system, and the chemical signature matched compounds used in human mining operations. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized the implications. Someone had used human-manufactured chemicals to poison the most beloved leader in the galaxy, and they had done it in front of representatives from every major species. The political consequences would be enormous, and humanity's fragile position in the Galactic Council would be destroyed. As the medical team carried Queen Zelara's failing form from the hall, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He would not accept that humans were responsible for this attack. He would find the truth, no matter what it cost him, and he would clear his species' name before it was too late. The Queen's collapse had caused panic, but Jake Morrison was about to prove that sometimes it takes a human to see what everyone else has missed. Jake Morrison could not sleep that night. He kept thinking about Queen Zelara lying in the medical bay, her crystalline form growing dimmer with each passing hour. The news from Dr. Kethver was not good. The poison was spreading through her crystal matrix faster than anyone had expected, and the alien doctor was running out of treatment options. The political situation was getting worse by the hour. Jake had overheard angry conversations between delegates in the corridors, and the accusations against humanity were becoming more direct and hostile. The Crystalline Empire had already recalled their ambassador and was demanding that the Galactic Council take immediate action against the human delegation. Jake knew he had to do something, but he was just a security guard. Nobody would listen to him, especially when all the evidence seemed to point toward human involvement. The chemical analysis had confirmed that the poison contained compounds that were identical to those used in human mining operations. It was damning evidence that would be almost impossible to explain away, but Jake remembered that shimmer he had seen near the podium just before the Queen collapsed. It had been there for only a moment, but his human eyes had caught something that the security cameras had apparently missed. Jake decided to review the footage himself, hoping to find some clue that others had overlooked. The security office was quiet when Jake arrived for his shift the next morning. Most of the other guards were busy with increased patrols throughout the station. trying to maintain order as tensions between species continued to rise. Jake sat down at one of the monitoring stations and began pulling up the footage from the Grand Assembly Hall. He watched the recording of Queen Zaylora's entrance, her graceful movement toward the podium, and the beginning of her speech. Jake slowed the playback speed and watched carefully for any sign of the shimmer he had seen. The minutes passed, and he began to worry that he had imagined the whole thing. Then he saw it. For exactly 3 seconds, there was a distortion in the air near the podium. It was barely visible, like looking through water, but it was definitely there. Jake tried to enhance the image, but the distortion seemed to interfere with the camera's ability to focus properly. More importantly, the timestamp showed that the shimmer occurred exactly 90 seconds before the Queen began showing symptoms of poisoning. Jake felt his excitement growing. This was proof that something unusual had happened, something that the official investigation had missed. He tried to access the backup camera feeds from different angles, but his security clearance was not high enough to view the restricted files. He needed help, and he knew exactly who to ask. Dr. Kethfer was working around the clock in his medical bay, running test after test on samples from the Queen's crystalline matrix. Jake found the alien doctor hunched over his analysis equipment, his 6 legs moving constantly as he worked. The insectoid being looked exhausted, his compound eyes reflecting the strain of trying to save the Queen's life. "Dr. Kethfer," Jake said quietly, not wanting to startle the focused physician. "I need to talk to you about something I discovered." The alien doctor looked up, his antennae twitching with irritation. "Security guard Morrison, I do not have time for questions right now. The Queen's condition is deteriorating rapidly, and I must find a way to neutralize this poison before it completely destroys her crystal matrix," Jake persisted, knowing that this might be his only chance to get the doctor's attention. "I found something in the security footage that might be important." There was a distortion in the air near the podium just before the Queen collapsed. "I think someone used some kind of delivery system to introduce the poison into the hall." Dr. Kethfer's compound eyes focused on Jake with new interest. "A delivery system? What kind of distortion did you observe?" Jake described the shimmer he had seen, and the doctor's antennae began moving more rapidly. "That is very interesting," Dr. Kethfer said slowly. "I have been puzzled by the speed of the Queen's collapse. Based on the concentration of toxin in her system, she should have taken hours to show symptoms. But she collapsed within minutes of exposure." The alien doctor pulled up his analysis results on a holographic display. "Look at this data. The poison was delivered in a highly concentrated form, much more potent than anything that could be achieved through normal atmospheric contamination. Someone used an advanced delivery method to ensure maximum effectiveness." Jake felt a surge of hope. "So you believe me? You think someone deliberately targeted the Queen with a sophisticated weapon?" Dr. Kethfer nodded, his mandibles clicking. Thoughtfully, "Yes, I believe your observation is correct, but proving it will be difficult. The toxin has a very short half-life, and most traces of the delivery system would have dissipated by now." Jake asked if he could examine the crime scene again, and Dr. Kethfer agreed to give him access to the sealed assembly hall. Together, they returned to the place where the Queen had collapsed, bringing the doctor's sensitive detection equipment with them. The hall was empty and eerily quiet. Jake stood where he had been positioned during the Queen's speech, trying to recreate the exact conditions from that moment. Dr. Kethfer moved around the podium area, his equipment scanning for any remaining traces of the poison or its delivery system. "Here," the doctor said suddenly, his antennae pointing toward a specific spot near the podium. "I am detecting microscopic residue that does not match the atmospheric contamination pattern. Something was definitely deployed here, something designed to deliver a concentrated dose directly to the Queen's location." Jake examined the area carefully, using his human pattern recognition abilities to look for anything unusual. The alien delegates had been focused on the Queen's speech, but Jake's security training had taught him to watch for threats from all directions. He noticed scuff marks on the floor that did not match the normal traffic patterns, and small scratches on the podium surface that looked fresh. "Dr. Kethfer," Jake said, pointing to the scratches. These marks look like they were made by some kind of device. Maybe something that was attached to the podium and then removed after the attack. The alien doctor examined the scratches with his equipment and confirmed that they contained traces of the same unknown residue. You are correct, security guard. Morrison, someone attached a device to this podium, used it to deliver the poison, and then removed it during the chaos that followed the Queen's collapse. Jake felt the pieces of the puzzle beginning to come together. This was not a random attack or an accident. Someone planned this very carefully. They knew exactly where the Queen would be standing. They had access to the assembly hall to plant their device. And they knew how to create a poison that would specifically target crystalline life forms. Dr. Kethver's expression grew more serious. If your theory is correct, then we are dealing with someone who has extensive knowledge of both crystalline biology and advanced delivery systems. This narrows the list of possible suspects considerably. Jake realized that the human-manufactured chemicals found in the toxin were probably just a cover story, designed to frame humanity for the attack. The real perpetrator was someone with access to the station's systems, knowledge of alien biology, and the technical skills to create a sophisticated assassination device. As they prepared to leave the assembly hall, Jake's device buzzed with an urgent message. Commander Vera Hayes wanted to see him immediately in her office. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Had someone discovered his unauthorized investigation? Was he about to be arrested for interfering with the official inquiry? Dr. Kethver placed one of his insectoid hands on Jake's shoulder. Security guard Morrison, I believe you are the only one who truly understands what happened here. Do not let them stop you from finding the truth. The Queen's life depends on it, and so does the future of human-alien relations. Jake walked toward Commander Hayes' office, knowing that his investigation had only just begun. He had found evidence that the attack was more sophisticated than anyone realized, but he still had no idea who was really responsible. The clock was ticking, and with each passing hour, Queen Zalara grew weaker while the political situation grew more dangerous. Jake Morrison was about to discover that sometimes the truth is far more complicated than anyone expects, and that uncovering it might put his own life at risk. Jake Morrison walked slowly toward Commander Vera Hayes' office, his mind racing with possibilities. Had someone seen him investigating the crime scene with Dr. Kethver? Was he about to be arrested for interfering with the official inquiry? Jake knew that his unauthorized investigation could be seen as insubordination, but he also knew that he was the only one asking the right questions. Commander Hayes was standing behind her desk when Jake entered, her expression unreadable. She was a tough woman who had earned her position through years of hard work and dedication, and Jake had always respected her fair leadership style. But today, something in her manner made him nervous. Sit down, Morrison, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. We need to talk about what you've been doing for the past 24 hours. Jake sat down and waited for her to continue. He decided that honesty was his best option, even if it might get him in trouble. Commander, I've been investigating the attack on Queen Zalara. I found evidence that suggests the official theory about human involvement might be wrong, Commander. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Go on, Jake told her about the shimmer he had seen, the distortion in the security footage, and the evidence he had found with Dr. Kethver that proved someone had used a sophisticated delivery device. He explained his theory that the human-manufactured chemicals were just a cover story designed to frame humanity for the attack. Commander Hayes listened without interrupting, her expression growing more thoughtful as Jake continued. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied him carefully. Morrison, what you're describing sounds like a very complex conspiracy. Do you have any idea who might be responsible? Jake shook his head. Not yet, Commander. But I know. It has to be someone with access to the assembly hall, knowledge of crystalline biology, and the technical skills to create an advanced delivery system. That narrows it down to station personnel or delegates with specialized backgrounds. Commander Hayes stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the station's main docking bay. Several ships had arrived since the attack, including vessels from the Crystalline Empire that were probably carrying investigators or military personnel. Morrison, I'm going to tell you something that's classified information. The Crystalline Empire has given us an ultimatum. They want the perpetrators of this attack handed over within 48 hours, or they're going to withdraw from the Galactic Council and impose economic sanctions on every species they believe was involved. Jake felt his stomach drop. Commander, if they withdraw from the Council, it could destabilize the entire galaxy. The Crystalline Empire controls some of the most important trade routes and mineral resources in known space. Commander Hayes nodded grimly. Exactly, and if they impose sanctions on humanity, our colonies will be cut off from essential supplies. We're talking about millions of lives at stake. She turned back to face Jake. That's why I'm giving you official authorization to continue your investigation. I'm also assigning you additional resources and clearance to access any files you need. But Morrison, you need to understand the pressure we're under. If you can't find the real perpetrator within the next 2 days, humanity's future in the galaxy is over. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. I understand, Commander. I won't let you down. Commander Hayes handed him a security pad with enhanced clearance codes. Dr. Kethver has already requested to work with you. Officially. I'm also assigning Technician Pete Walsh to help you with any computer analysis you need. He's one of our best at finding hidden data. Jake left the commander's office feeling both relieved and terrified. He had official support for his investigation, but he also knew that the stakes were higher than he had imagined. The future of human civilization was literally in his hands. He met Pete Walsh in the main computer center, where the young technician was already working on enhancing the security footage from the assembly hall. Pete was a skilled analyst who had joined the station's crew just 6 months ago, and Jake had been impressed by his ability to find patterns in complex data. Jake, I've been going through the footage frame by frame, Pete said, pointing to his screen. That distortion you found is definitely artificial. Look at this pattern analysis. The screen showed a detailed breakdown of the shimmer Jake had observed. Pete had used advanced algorithms to analyze the light refraction patterns, and the results were clear. The distortion was caused by some kind of cloaking device, something designed to hide an object or person from normal observation. Pete, this is incredible work. Can you tell what was being hidden? Pete shook his head. Not directly, but I can make some educated guesses based on the size and shape of the distortion field. Whatever it was small, probably about the size of a briefcase, and it was positioned at exactly the right height to deliver something toward the Queen's location. Jake felt another piece of the puzzle fall into place. So someone used a cloak device to deliver the poison directly to Queen Zalara without being seen. But who has access to that kind of technology? Pete pulled up another screen showing the technical specifications of different species' capabilities. According to our database, only 3 species in the Galactic Council have the technology to create effective cloaking devices. The Talon Confederation, the Void Dancers, and the Shadow Collective. Jake studied the list. The Talon Confederation. All warriors, they're too direct and honorable to use poison. The Shadow Collective rarely leaves their home system. That leaves the Void Dancers. The Void Dancers were a mysterious species known for their advanced technology and their neutral stance in galactic politics. They rarely got involved in conflicts between other species, preferring to observe and study rather than participate. But Jake knew that neutrality could sometimes be a cover for other activities. Pete, I need you to pull up the personnel files for all Void Dancer citizens working on this station. Cross-reference them with access logs for the assembly hall during the past week. Pete's fingers flew over his keyboard as he searched through the station's databases. After several minutes, he found what they were looking for. Jake, there's one Void Dancer with access to the assembly hall. Navigation Officer Silenth has been working on the station for 3 years, and she had legitimate access to the hall for routine maintenance checks. Jake felt his pulse quicken. What kind of maintenance? Atmospheric systems, environmental controls, and structural integrity monitoring. She would have had access to all the systems that could be used to deliver an airborne toxin. Jake realized that they might have found their suspect, but he needed more evidence before making any accusations. Pete, I need you to dig deeper into Scylinth's activities. Look for any unusual behavior, any unexplained access to restricted areas, anything that might connect her to this attack. While Pete worked on his analysis, Jake decided to do some old-fashioned detective work. He went to the station's maintenance section, where he hoped to find physical evidence of tampering with the atmospheric systems. The maintenance tunnels were cramped and poorly lit, but Jake's human determination drove him forward. He crawled through service ducts and examined air filtration systems, looking for any sign that someone had modified the station's environmental controls. After 2 hours of searching, Jake found what he was looking for. In a service tunnel that ran directly beneath the assembly hall, he discovered traces of the same unknown residue that Dr. Kethfer had found at the crime scene. Someone had definitely tampered with the atmospheric systems, and they had done it in a way that would deliver the poison directly to the Queen's location. Jake took samples of the residue and headed back to find Pete. He was beginning to understand the scope of the conspiracy they were dealing with. This was not just a simple assassination attempt. Someone had been planning this attack for months, maybe even years, and they had used their position on the station to prepare every detail. When Jake returned to the computer center, Pete was waiting with more disturbing news. Jake, I found something big. Scylinth has been accessing restricted files about human technology and crystalline biology for the past 18 months. She's been studying both subjects intensively. Jake felt the final pieces of the puzzle beginning to come together. She was learning how to create a poison that would target crystalline life forms while leaving traces that would implicate humanity. Pete, I think we've found our perpetrator, but Jake also realized that proving Scylinth's guilt would be dangerous. If she was willing to poison a beloved queen to frame humanity, she would certainly be willing to kill a human security guard who had discovered her secret. Jake, Morrison was about to learn that sometimes uncovering the truth is only the beginning of the real challenge. Jake Morrison knew he was running out of time. The Crystalline Empire's ultimatum would expire in less than 24 hours. And he still needed concrete proof that Scylinth was responsible for the attack. Having a suspect was not enough. He needed evidence that would convince the Galactic Council and clear humanity's name before it was too late. Jake decided to observe Scylinth directly, hoping to catch her in some suspicious behavior. He found her in the navigation center, working at her station as if nothing had happened. The Void Dancer was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to see everything around her. Her species was known for their intelligence and their ability to remain calm under pressure. Scylinth looked up as Jake entered the navigation center, her expression neutral and professional. Security guard Morrison, is there something I can help you with? Jake tried to keep his voice casual. Just doing routine security checks after the incident with Queen Zalara. I need to verify that all station personnel were at their assigned positions during the time of the attack. Scylinth nodded calmly. Of course. I was here in the navigation center during the Queen's speech. I can provide you with my duty logs? If you need them, Jake accepted the logs, but he was more interested in watching Scylinth's behavior. She seemed completely relaxed, showing no signs of nervousness or guilt. Either she was innocent or she was an extremely skilled actress. Jake's human instincts told him that something was not quite right, but he could not put his finger on what it was. After leaving the navigation center, Jake met with Pete Walsh to review the evidence they had collected. Pete had been working around the clock, analyzing data and cross-referencing Scylinth's activities with the timeline of the attack. Jake, I found something interesting, Pete said, pulling up a new screen. Scylinth's duty logs show that she was in the navigation center during the Queen's speech, but the computer access records tell a different story. Pete pointed to the data on his screen. Someone used Scylinth's access codes to log into the environmental control system at exactly the time when the poison was delivered. But the login came from a terminal in the maintenance section, not from the navigation center. Jake felt his excitement growing. So either someone stole her access codes or she was not where she claimed to be during the attack. Pete nodded. There's more. I found traces of the same cloaking technology signature in the maintenance logs. Someone used advanced void dancer technology to hide their presence while they tampered with the atmospheric systems. Jake realized that they were close to proving Selenth's guilt, but he also knew that she would be expecting them to investigate her. If she was as intelligent as he suspected, she would have prepared for the possibility of discovery. Pete, I need you to monitor all of Selenth's communications and computer access. If she tries to destroy evidence or contact accomplices, I want to know about it immediately. Jake decided to take a different approach. Instead of continuing to investigate Selenth directly, he would try to understand her motives. Why would a void dancer want to frame humanity for regicide? What did she hope to gain from destroying the relationship between humans and the Crystalline Empire? Jake went to the station's library and began researching void dancer culture and politics. What he discovered was disturbing. The void dancers had been neutral observers in galactic politics for centuries, but recent reports suggested that some members of their species were becoming frustrated with their passive role. Faction of void dancers believed that their advanced technology and superior intelligence made them natural leaders of the galaxy. They resented being ignored by the major powers and wanted to establish themselves as a dominant force in galactic affairs. The problem was that the current balance of power made it impossible for them to achieve their goals. Through normal means, Jake began to see the bigger picture. By framing humanity for the Queen's assassination, Selenth would accomplish several objectives at once. Humanity would be expelled from the Galactic Council or destroyed entirely, removing a young and dynamic species that threatened the established order. The Crystalline Empire would be weakened by the loss of their beloved queen and the political chaos that would follow. And in the resulting power vacuum, the Void Dancers could position themselves as the galaxy's new peacekeepers and leaders. It was a brilliant plan, but it required someone with inside knowledge of the station's systems and access to advanced technology. Selenth had been working on New Harmony Station for 3 years, giving her plenty of time to study the systems and plan her attack. Jake's device buzzed with an urgent message from Pete. "Jake, you need to get down here immediately. Selenth is trying to access the station's main computer core." Jake ran to the computer center, where Pete was frantically working at his terminal. "She's using her administrative access to delete files from the system. I'm trying to stop her, but she's got higher clearance than I do." Jake realized that Selenth knew they were closing in on her. She was trying to destroy the evidence of her involvement before they could present it to the authorities. "Pete, can you trace where she's accessing the system from?" Pete's fingers flew over his keyboard. "She's in the main computer core, 3 levels down." "But Jake, that area is restricted. She shouldn't be able to get in there without security clearance." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If Selenth was in the computer core, she was not just trying to delete evidence. She was trying to access the station's most sensitive systems, possibly to plant false evidence or to sabotage the investigation entirely. "Pete, I'm going down there to stop her. Keep monitoring her activities and record everything she does. If something happens to me, make sure Commander Hayes gets all the evidence we've collected." Jake made his way to the computer core, moving as quietly as possible through the station's corridors. He did not want to alert Selenth to his presence until he was ready to confront her. The computer core was located in the most secure section of the station, surrounded by multiple layers of security barriers and monitoring systems. When Jake reached the entrance to the computer core, he found that the security locks had been overridden. Selenth had used her knowledge of the station's systems to bypass the normal access controls. Jake drew his sidearm and entered the core chamber cautiously. The computer core was a massive room filled with processing units and data storage systems that hummed with quiet energy. Jake could see Selenth standing at one of the main terminals, her fingers moving rapidly over the control interface. She was so focused on her work that she had not noticed his arrival. "Selenth, step away from the terminal," Jake called out. His weapon trained on her, the Void Dancer turned slowly, her large dark eyes showing no surprise at his presence. "Security guard Morrison, I was wondering when you would find me." "You?" More persistent than I expected, Jake kept his weapon steady. You're under arrest for the attempted assassination of Queen Zalara and conspiracy to frame humanity for regicide. Step away from the terminal and put your hands where I can see." Then Scylla smiled, and Jake realized that she was not afraid. In fact, she seemed almost pleased that he had discovered her plan. "You are too late, Security Guard Morrison. I have already accomplished what I set out to do. The evidence pointing to human involvement has been strengthened, and the files that might have cleared your species have been destroyed." Jake felt his heart sink. Had he been too late to save his people? "Why are you doing this? What do you hope to gain from destroying the relationship between humans and the crystalline empire?" Scylla's expression turned cold. "My people have watched from the sidelines for too long while inferior species make decisions that affect the entire galaxy. It is time for the Void Dancers to take their rightful place as the galaxy's leaders. But first we must eliminate the obstacles that stand in our way." Jake realized that this was bigger than just one assassination attempt. Scylla was part of a larger conspiracy that threatened the stability of the entire galaxy. "How many others are involved in this plan?" Scylla's smile widened. "More than you can imagine, Security Guard Morrison. This is just the beginning, Jake." Morrison was about to discover that sometimes the truth is more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. Jake Morrison kept his weapon trained on Scylla, but his mind was racing with the implications of what she had just revealed. If there were other Void Dancer agents throughout the galaxy working on similar plans, then humanity's problems were far bigger than just clearing their name in Queen Zalara's assassination attempt. "Scylla, you're going to help me undo the damage you've caused," Jake said firmly. "You're going to restore the files you deleted and provide evidence that clears humanity of involvement in this attack." The Void Dancer laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Why would I do that, Security Guard Morrison? In less than 12 hours, the Crystalline Empire's ultimatum will expire. Your species will be expelled from the Galactic Council, and the political chaos that follows will create the perfect opportunity for my people to establish a new order." Jake realized that simply arresting Scylla would not be enough. Even if he could prove her guilt, the damage to human-alien relations might already be irreversible. He needed to find a way to not only expose the conspiracy but also save Queen Zalara's life. The Queen was the only witness who could definitively clear humanity of wrongdoing. "Scylla, tell me about the poison you used. Is there an antidote?" The Void Dancer's expression remained cold. "The toxin was designed to be undetectable and untreatable by conventional methods. Your alien allies have already tried everything they know, and the Queen continues to deteriorate. She will be dead within hours." Jake felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. His human training had taught him that emotions could cloud judgment, and he needed to think clearly if he was going to solve this crisis. Maybe conventional methods won't work, but humans see problems differently than other species. "We might find a solution that others have missed." Jake's device buzzed with an urgent message from Pete Walsh. "Jake, I'm picking up massive computer activity throughout the station. Someone is trying to access classified files from multiple terminals simultaneously." Jake realized that Scylla had accomplices on the station, and they were probably trying to complete whatever plan she had started. "Pete, lock down all computer access except for essential systems. Use emergency protocols if you have to." Scylla's confident expression faltered slightly. "You cannot stop what has already begun, Security Guard Morrison. My colleagues are ensuring that the evidence against humanity becomes overwhelming. Even if you arrest me, the political damage will be irreversible." Jake made a decision that would either save his species or doom them completely. "Pete, I need you to contact Dr. Susan Blake immediately. Tell her to meet me in Dr. Kethvar's medical bay. I have an idea that might save Queen Zalara." Dr. Susan Blake was the station's human xenobiologist, a brilliant scientist who had spent years studying the unique properties of different alien life forms. If anyone could find a way to treat the Queen's condition, it would be her. Jake knew it was a long shot, but human ingenuity had solved impossible problems before. "Scylla, you're coming with me," Jake said, gesturing toward the exit with his weapon. "If your poison kills Queen Zalara, you'll be charged with regicide. But if we can save her life, she can testify about what really happened. The Void Dancer seemed less confident now, but she remained defiant. Human medicine is primitive compared to what the galaxy's finest physicians have already attempted. You are wasting what little time you have left. Jake escorted Silanth to the medical bay, where Dr. Kethver was still working desperately to save the Queen's life. The alien physician looked exhausted, his compound eyes dim with fatigue and frustration. Queen Zilara's crystalline form had continued to darken, and the cracks in her surface had spread throughout her body. Dr. Susan Blake arrived within minutes, carrying her research equipment and looking determined despite the dire circumstances. She was a small woman with bright eyes and an analytical mind that had impressed even alien scientists with its ability to find patterns in complex biological systems. "Jake, Pete told me what you need," Dr. Blake said quickly. "I've been studying crystalline life forms for 3 years, and I might have an approach that others haven't considered." Dr. Kethver looked skeptical. "Dr. Blake, we have tried every known treatment for crystalline toxin poisoning. The Queen's crystal matrix is breaking down at the molecular level. I do not see how human medicine can succeed where our advanced techniques have failed." Dr. Blake moved to the Queen's bedside and began scanning her with her equipment. "Dr. Kethver, you've been treating this as a biological poisoning, but what if we approach it as a chemical reaction? Humans have extensive experience with mineral chemistry and crystal formation processes." Jake watched as Dr. Blake worked, her human mind approaching the problem from a completely different angle than the alien physicians had considered. While other species saw the Queen as a living being who had been poisoned, Dr. Blake saw her as a complex crystal structure that was undergoing an unwanted chemical reaction. "Look at this data," Dr. Blake said, pointing to her scanner results. "The toxin isn't just destroying the Queen's crystal matrix. It's causing a cascade reaction that's converting her stable crystal structure into an unstable form. If we can interrupt that cascade and provide the right chemical environment, we might be able to reverse the process." Dr. Kethver studied the data, his antennae twitching with growing interest. "This is a completely different approach from what we have tried, but the risk is enormous. If your theory is wrong, the treatment could accelerate the Queen's deterioration." Jake looked at Queen Zilara's failing form and made the decision. "Dr. Blake, do it. We're running out of time anyway, and this might be her only chance." Dr. Blake began preparing a treatment based on human understanding of crystal chemistry and molecular bonding. She combined compounds that would never have occurred to alien physicians, using techniques that had been developed for human mining and manufacturing operations. Meanwhile, Jake forced Silanth to watch as the human doctors worked to save the life she had tried to take. "Your plan is falling apart, Silanth. When Queen Zilara recovers, she'll be able to tell everyone what really happened. Your conspiracy will be exposed, and the Void Dancers will face the consequences of their actions." Silanth's confidence was cracking. "Even if you save the Queen, my people will continue their plans. This assassination attempt was just the beginning. We will find other ways to destabilize the current order and establish Void Dancer supremacy." Dr. Blake administered her experimental treatment to Queen Zilara, and everyone in the medical bay held their breath as they waited to see if it would work. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to change. Then, slowly, the cracks in the Queen's crystalline form began to fade. The dim light within her crystal matrix started to brighten, and the gray areas of her surface began to clear. "It's working?" Dr. Kethver said in amazement. "The crystal structure is stabilizing and beginning to repair itself. Dr. Blake, your human approach has succeeded where our methods failed." Queen Zilara's eyes opened, glowing with renewed inner light. Her voice was weak but clear as she spoke. "Security Guard Morrison, I remember what happened. The attack came from someone with advanced technology. Someone who wanted to frame humanity for my death." Jake felt a surge of relief and triumph. "Your Majesty, we have the perpetrator in custody." Silanth of the Void Dancers orchestrated the entire attack to destabilize galactic politics and position her species as the new dominant power. The Queen's gaze fixed on Silanth, and her expression hardened. I suspected that someone was planning to use my death for political purposes. I had begun investigating unusual activities among certain Void Dancer factions, but I was poisoned before I could act on my suspicions. With Queen Zilara's testimony and the evidence that Jake had gathered, the case against Solenth was overwhelming. The Void Dancer conspiracy was exposed, and emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called to address the threat posed by the extremist faction. Jake Morrison had not only cleared humanity's name, but had also uncovered a plot that threatened the stability of the entire galaxy. His determination to seek the truth, combined with human ingenuity and willingness to take calculated risks, had saved both Queen Zilara's life and his species' place in the galactic community. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to expand human participation in galactic security and scientific endeavors. Jake was promoted to head of interspecies criminal investigations, and Dr. Blake's medical breakthrough opened new possibilities for cooperation between human and alien physicians. As Jake stood in the assembly hall where the crisis had begun, he reflected on how human traits that others sometimes saw as primitive or reckless had proven to be exactly what the galaxy needed. Sometimes it takes a human perspective to see what everyone else has missed, and sometimes the willingness to take risks is the key to solving impossible problems. Jake Morrison had proven that humanity belonged among the stars, not as junior partners, but as equals who brought unique strengths to the galactic community. The Queen's collapse had caused panic, but a human guard had uncovered the truth and saved the day.